Suriname. And as president, I took the case to the International Convention on the Law of the Sea. It took us about 6 years to get a ruling. And once we got that ruling, Exxon lifted the force majeure that they had declared. Force majeure simply means they had stopped exploration. So only in 2009 or so, the force majeure was lifted, the exploration restarted. And just before elections, they found oil. And I remember Vulcan saying in 2015, oh, it's another PPP gimmick to win the elections that they were talking about, we found oil. Well, they made a mess of it in the last 5 years. Signed an agreement that is a horrible agreement. Horrible agreement. But now that the industry is here, it is generating a lot of energy, but particularly in Region 4. And so the idea was to shift some of this economic activity over to Region 3. And the first decision we had to make was, where do we put this pipeline? Where do we bring in the pipeline? So now I see many people saying, oh, we shouldn't bring in the pipeline, we shouldn't generate gas, it's going to affect our climate profile. It's all nonsense. Because by 2024, when we build the power plant here at Wales, which will generate 250 megawatts of power. This is twice as much as GPL now supplies to the entire country. Our emission level will be 50% of what it is today. So it will cut emission because we use gas instead of diesel and bunker C. So it's less polluting. And secondly, we'd be able to cut the price of electricity by 50% and have a stable supply throughout the country. That pipeline will allow us to supply LPG, cooking gas, to our people, because we don't have to import it anymore. Our share of the cooking gas, the 50%, that will be the byproduct from the drying of the gas, will be enough to supply Guyana 3 times. And we'd have propane and many other byproducts. But guess what? That pipeline, Patterson and the others should have made a decision since 2016. They were looking at Mahaica area because the people said you can bring in the pipeline there. And guess what happened? Many of the big rigs from APNU went and bought up the land there because they knew the pipeline might go there so that the land value will go up and they'd make a killing. And then no decision was made. Then they said, let's put it by Ogle, at the back of Ogle. So when we assessed it, that was the first decision we had to make last year. We said that first of all, it's close to the city. Secondly, the price of land over there is enormous. And thirdly, we have an entire sugar estate that's close here where people need employment. And we did an assessment to bring the pipeline to Demerara to Wales wouldn't cost much more than taking it here in Demerara. In fact, it would have been harder to put in the infrastructure over there. So we made a decision that it will come to Wales. And then you saw what APNU and the others said. Oh, we are bringing it to a PPP stronghold. The fact is that people of every race and every political party will benefit from this. It come in to develop here and create jobs. But secondly, it's as though you can't take anything to pro-PPP areas in this country. It's okay if we build everything in one area, Georgetown. But we made that decision. The project is irretrievable. The first 50 million cubic per day of gas that will come in would allow us to do the power. We may have a small fertilizer plant. You would have a plant to do protein for animals, a whole range of economic activities. When the second, the pipeline is a huge one, when the second 70 million cubic feet per gas comes in per day, a whole range of industries will be developed right here. And all of these will generate thousands of jobs, thousands, more than what they laid off in the sugar industry. And this is going to happen very soon. Already, we've seen some people buying up the land here. They want to put a cement plant, production plant here. We made it clear when somebody cut down the little mangrove fringe there, and Harman took a boat and he was shedding crocodile tears in a boat. Oh, they cut down the little mangrove forest. I don't know we have a forest there. And we said, you know what? We may have to clear all the mangrove from the mouth of the river to Wales, but it would be replaced by proper sea defenses. But the same development that you see on the Demerara side, where all the wharves are, that development has to come to this side, and it will generate in the future maybe 20,000 jobs, as many people as work on the other side, not 2,000 jobs as they laid off. Because you're gonna have the port facilities being built on this side, the laydown yard, these new factories coming to utilize the gas to build new facilities. You can have cosmetic industries, etc. This area is up for massive, massive development. We've already been mapping which bridges we have to load, to upgrade, to take the equipment into the site. We'd have to build new wharves to offload equipment going in. You're gonna see an unbelievable level of development in this area. Yesterday, they also opened the bid for the bridge that will come across. So we are hoping that we've had a good bid, and before the end of the year, we can award a high-level bridge, permanent structure that you don't have to open, that will be, can take any load, because if you have development here, you'd have to move containers back and forth across the bridge. And then if you're gonna have new wharves being built by Reed and Hoop and all the way coming up, you would have a lot of economic activities, so the two places could be integrated. We already mapped out how we can take this traffic into the city, and the bypass road that we're working on has already been laid out. We've already started building a 4-lane road to go to Diamond. The first part to Eccles is under construction. By the end of the year, early next year, the part from Eccles to Diamond will be upgraded. So you'd have 8 lanes coming in from Diamond. I can't tell you about all the plans. We have plans to the East Coast too, but in the last year, we've been working at laying this down. We've done the feasibility study for 4-lane road from the bridge to Parika. That is another road, not the one that we're building now, not the existing one. So we can open up more lands at the back for agriculture and for housing. This region will see a massive development, all of these areas. And I hope that you're getting ready for it, because we are working aggressively on training programs. So we are prepared to pay for people. They would need hundreds of welders when the pipeline project comes. I'm told about 600-700 persons. And you can be, in 3 months' time, you can be certified as a welder. The job is good, but not only in those areas, but many other areas. And we will need to talk to those sugar workers. I've asked the head of Gaisuko to do an assessment of each sugar worker, what they are doing, those who lost their jobs, but others too, who need training. The government is prepared to pay for the training so they can then enter the job market for oil and gas, the oil and gas industry and the other industries. So here at Wales, we may not be able to reopen this factory because of what was done, but we're putting in place the plans to generate more jobs than you would actually have people in this region to supply. People would have to travel to this region to work. They'd have to travel in this region to work because the whole west side now will develop rapidly and fast. And I'm not talking about 2 years down the line. It's already starting now. So this is very important for us. The planning process has been done with that. We just opened another bid to build the hydropower. The same hydropower that they killed, that by 2017 that should have been supplying power to the country, we're going to build the hydropower too. Putting in solar panels because we want our energy mix to represent gas, solar, hydro. We're going to be an energy powerhouse of the future because of our oil and gas reserves. On education, you have now several new hospitals, private sector hospitals that are under construction are going to start in this region. But we have serious plans to upgrade the hospitals in this region. We now have to get, not just here, but across the country, we have to get healthcare to an international standard, where when people go into these facilities, they have the best quality equipment and care. And that is part of the planning process to roll out here. So today, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I can have you rest assured that none of the things that we spoke about in the campaign trail, we forgot. But we're busy planning for it. We have had to deal with $93 billion of debt that APNU left us. $93 billion of debt. So they've been going back to where we emerged from. You know, and we have to contend with this constant battle where they try to polarize, divide our country using race. That has nothing to do with race. If you look at our plans are to develop every single part of our country. When I go to Linden, I'll talk about the plans for the Region 10 too, because they're part of our planning process. Georgetown Development Plan, we have a plan how to do a number of things, upgrade the city's infrastructure, a massive plan. So everything is about race. And let me factually, you know why they have to do that? They have nothing else. I pity them basically. Because to talk about other things, you have to have achievements to talk about. You have to have achievements to talk about. Or you have to demonstrate when you're in office what you did for people. So you recall, especially the older folks here, not too many here, but three decades of PNC rule. What was the result in 1992 when the Caribbean Council of Churches came to Guyana to do an assessment? What was their finding? Not PPP finding. They found that we didn't have democracy. 2, there was an air of hopelessness. 3, that Guyana was poorer than Haiti. 4, that our debt was one of the highest per capita in the world. You recall those periods? Blackout for 2 weeks at a time, no infrastructure. To drive I had just got back from university, and to get from the central Bank of Guyana, to the Ministry of Finance, took about 20 minutes to drive. Not because there was traffic, there were potholes on Main Street. But in front of Palm Court, had a huge one. If I stand in it, you couldn't even see me. That was the level of infrastructure. How many of our people fled? So if you have no legacy, 3 decades of rule, and then the first time you came back to office and you had another 5 years, but your only thing was taxing people, You put on a lot of taxes. 40,000 people lost their jobs, of which 7,000 were from sugar. You borrowed a lot again. You tried to steal the elections the first chance you get it. What do you campaign on? And that is why they have to turn only to one issue, race. But we must see past that. That it's because of no history of achievement. I can stand here today and tell you about in an APNU stronghold what we did. And say, you compared what you did in that period. Say Linden. I can point to Amelia's ward, the new housing scheme there, and say, the PPP built that. I can point to Block 22 and say, the PPP built that. The new hospital there, that the PPP built that. I can point to the call center that we had built when I was president. They shut down. 3 weeks after they got into office, 88 persons lost their job. We just reopened it now, and 150 persons would be working there. So I can point to things. I don't have to campaign on the basis of gaffe or rumors. And so that is why we must fight off any attempt to divide our people. The only way we make progress is if all of us progress together. People of every race, regardless of who you vote for. And that's what we plan for. It's always been our plan, and that's how we're going to be implementing it. So do not be distracted by the sideshows that you see every day. Suddenly they love people, you know. The Afro-Guyanese in Guyana fared worse under APNU than any PPP government. And I can tell you, I have the stats. Let them come and have a debate on stats. We can show that statistically and in real life. They would never do that, the fact-based debate. So we have to move forward. We have to move forward. Then here in this region, temporary, next year, we're going to put in place a program for temporary employment for people who don't have jobs immediately. Secondly, the flood assistance will come to this region soon. You're going to get about maybe 5,000 persons here, but please don't do what happened in Berbice. That people, we have to verify it carefully. We should post the list of the names up of people who are eligible, so people can go there before and say, that man didn't lose anything, and my name is not on the list, I lost. Because often when the government puts together these initiatives, it does so to help people. Sometimes you have unscrupulous individuals who mess up the whole arrangement. And so we've had some of that in Berbice. We put a mechanism. I hope that in this region, we don't have a similar situation. I hope so. And that people who actually suffered, they're the ones who get the benefit. That's going to happen soon. The training, we work with the region to ensure that in this area, if you need people to be trained in some skills that are needed, a lot of the shore-based facilities, they are recruiting people now, but the government can supplement the training. We can do that easily through helping you. And then, as I recall, I was saying to the workers in Berbice, you recall at Wales here, when they severed the workers and they didn't pay the severance. And even the workers in Berbice, and holders saying, oh, if we give the workers the severance money, and now this is a small sum of money, that people work for, sweat and blood for many years in the industry, whilst they were sitting around enjoying food alone for a single meeting used to run to $400,000, $500,000 that they were buying for single meetings. But he didn't care too much about that. He was worried about how sugar workers would have spent their severance. But people also in Wales could not get, they had to go to court. They had to protest. I remember joining the protesters outside of Parliament and us saying in Parliament to them, pay the workers their money, they earned that. Well, the callousness. I remember the most touching story was this little child. I think it went viral across the country from this region, talking about, from same Wales, a little girl talking about how her friends go to school and they ask her what they're doing and she can't go to school anymore because her parents can't afford to go. Those are haunting images. People went from having a decent job to not being able to feed their families. So we remember that. And that is why we have to work with people to make sure that they get jobs back again. We have to work every day to generate these jobs, even if it's not in the public sector. And we have to work with the surrounding areas, not just the sugar workers, but many cane farmers who were employing people suddenly made huge losses. We have to work on the agriculture sector with people. But this is why I've said in Berbice that for every sugar worker, all 7,000 who were terminated, each of them will get $250,000 in addition to their severance, because we needed to keep that commitment that we made. It will cost about $1.8 billion. But you know what? We can afford it as a country, because rather than spending $1.6 billion more in government eating more food, we can spend it on people giving it to the workers of the country. We can do that. And that is why we are cutting out a lot of the fat in government. Don't see it every single day. We are working at it. You may not see that publicly, you don't hear about it, but a lot of those things that are unnecessary spending, we can spend it back on our people, on better education, healthcare, finding jobs for them, ensuring that they live in freedom. These are important things to us. So I wanted to come back here to you to talk directly, because I came here a few times before and many of you had expressed concerns. I wanted to tell you in a nutshell, not with any elaboration, what are some of the basic plans for the region. I didn't even tell you about housing and all of those things, but there are basic plans in each of these areas to ensure that people's lives change for the better. And this is an ongoing task. So thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And I want you to know that we'll work. It's harder now to come out because of the COVID, but hopefully we'll be able to remove restrictions in the future to come out, meet with people in smaller groups. But I'll ask Guy Suko to make sure that we get an assessment for each worker, whether they're employed now, and this is not dependent. Whether you're working or you're not working, you still get the $250,000. So you don't have to be worried if you put your name down, you're not going to get it. Everybody who was laid off will get the money, regardless of what they're doing now. So don't worry about that. Even if they're re-employed by Gaisuko, like some have been re-employed in Berbice, maybe 1,000 have been re-employed here. So it doesn't matter. But we still want to know what's happening, if we can help, because you may have children who need help, scholarships and stuff like that. We want to make sure your children also benefit from these areas. You may need other types of assistance. And we're working also on assisting people to start small businesses, small grants, not too much, but we may be able to help. So for the 1,700 workers who were laid off here, we want to know what you are doing so we can keep track of you to see if we can help in other ways too. Not just with the $250,000 and we're done here. We want to make sure that you are doing well and you're re-employed and you're taking care of the family. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here.